Good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Secretary Sherwood-Randall, Principal Deputy Administrator Creedon, Acting Assistant Secretary Kotek, Acting Director Damer, awardees, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Department of Energy for this occasion. This is to honor the group in front of you with the prestigious 2014 Ernest Orlando Lawrence Award. It's wonderful to have them here and all of you as well. So I'm Lynn, I'm the Undersecretary for Science and Energy, and it's my privilege to oversee the programs at DOE that have the science and technology solutions that are what our effort to transform the nation's energy systems and address the most pressing energy challenges, even as we engage in all the discovery science that makes this place so special. The Lawrence Awards are among the nation's oldest and most esteemed awards. They were established in 1959 by the Atomic Energy Commission and are now proudly presented to the Department of Energy by the Department of Energy to mid-career U.S. Scientists for significant contributions to their fields of science. Previous winners have gone on to become DOE laboratory directors, DOE officials and advisors, teachers, mentors, Fermi Award winners, and Nobel Prize laureates, but no pressure. Each Lawrence Award recipient receives a medal, a citation signed by the secretary, and an honorarium of $20,000. But presumably you don't have to lug that home in cash. I'm hoping that we can do a check or a wire transfer. I'm reminded of my favorite Peanuts cartoon where Linus is walking home from school one day and is dragging his blanket behind him, and he's carrying his report card. And it's pretty clear from his expression that things might not have gone as well as he could have hoped. And he looks up at the end of the last panel and he says, "There is no greater burden than a high potential." Well, folks, you have been identified as having the highest potential, but as I said, no expectations. So this year's awardees represent true excellence in their respective fields of science, which span a rich range of Energy Department offices and missions, helping demonstrate the breadth and depth of the department's efforts in science and technology and national security. So we have 5 awardees today that are connected to DOE's Office of Science, 3 with connection to the National Nuclear Security Administration, and 1 with our Office of Nuclear Energy. And in just a moment, you'll have an opportunity to hear from the leadership of each of these offices to say a few words about their laureates. So with that, I extend my personal congratulations to the 2014 recipients of the Ernest Orlando Lawrence Award. The department really does look forward to your continued excellence in coming years. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Madeline Creedon, Principal Deputy Administrator for the National Nuclear Security Administration, to say a few words.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for your dedication to the science, to the research, and to the national security, and also because you truly are the future. And we look to you for so many things, and yes, high expectations are a burden, but nevertheless, we continue to have them. And really congratulate you, congratulate all your families. I know it's hard work, and it does take a team, both of your research teams and that team that we all know that's always either at home or wondering where the heck we are because it's dinner time. So really, thank you very much. And thank you on behalf of the National Nuclear Security Administration. You do our labs proud, and you do all of us very proud. So thank you very much for your service. Thanks.
So now we turn the mic over to John Kotek. He's the Acting Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations to all the honorees. Of course, Our honoree today is Dr. Brian Wirth from the University of Tennessee. Very pleased to have him here. My organization is focused on advancing nuclear energy and its potential as a low-carbon energy resource for now and in the future. A lot of what we do as an organization revolves around solving materials challenges, and so it's very appropriate that we have Brian here today because of his work in advancing the state of our understanding of materials and his specific work on transformational advances in computational multi-scale modeling of radiation effects in materials. He is somebody who I have interacted with over the years in his time. First got to know him at the University of California. I'm pleased to say that he got his start as a Department of Energy Nuclear Engineering graduate fellow at UC Santa Barbara back in the late 90s. And so we got our hooks into him early, and he's turned out okay.
So thanks, John. It's my pleasure now to introduce Patricia Damer, Acting Director of the Office of Science.
Thank you, Lynn, and congratulations to the 5 winners from the Office of Science. I'd just like to say their names and give one sentence about them. The first is May Bai. There she is. So May is at Brookhaven National Laboratory, and she works at the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider. And she's an accelerator physicist and has done just outstanding work. And I think if it wasn't for her efforts, we wouldn't have polarized proton beams at the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider. So congratulations to her. Next is Carolyn Bertozzi. I've known Carolyn for probably 15 years or so when she was a young scientist, not a mid-career scientist. And I remember meeting her at a conference, very small conference in San Diego. And you could tell even then that she was something special. She's gone on to lead the Molecular Foundry, which is an Office of Science scientific user facility. She was at Berkeley for many years, and she's just moved to Stanford. And congratulations to Stanford. Next in line is David Schlegel, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. I don't know David personally well, but I know of his work, and he's done outstanding work in precision cosmology and mapping the universe. Very impressive work. Congratulations to him. Peidong Yang is next, and he and the Office of Science go way back. He was a principal investigator for us for many, many years, and like the others, we could tell early on that he was going to be something special. And finally, my congratulations to Joe Zhao of the University of Oklahoma. He does environmental genomics and microbial ecology. He was actually a winner, a PCASE winner, Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers in the early 2000s, so we already knew long ago that he was going to be something special. And by the way, Brian Wirth was also a PCASE winner, right? Just about the same time in the early 2000s. So congratulations to all of them. We saw early on that they were going to be something special, and we see now at mid-career that they really are going to be something special in the following years. Thank you.
So thanks, Pat. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Secretary of Energy, Dr. Elizabeth Sherwood-Randall. She currently serves as the Deputy Secretary and has since October 2014 when she joined us. Assisting the Secretary in overseeing a large and complicated organization, I can tell you that that part's true, with major implications for the nation's security and energy future. She joined the Obama administration on day one, serving from 2009 to 2013 as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for European Affairs at the National Security Council, and from 2013 to 2014 as a White House Coordinator for Defense Policy, Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction and Arms Control. Before joining the President's team, Dr. Sherwood-Randall worked at Stanford University, at Harvard University, and at the Council on Foreign Relations. And in the Clinton administration, she served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia from 1994 to 1996. So those are places that have been much in the news lately, so perhaps we can ask her later about all of that. She attended college at Harvard, went undergraduate school at Oxford, and was amongst the very earliest of female Rhodes Scholars. And after her education, she began her career working for then Senator Joe Biden as his chief advisor on foreign and defense policy. She was born and raised in California, married to Jeff Randall, a neurosurgeon, and has 2 teenage sons. So please join me in welcoming Deputy Secretary of Energy Elizabeth Sherwood-Randall.
So thank you, Lynn. This is not at all about me. I did not expect to have my bio read. I'm so interested in the bios of these extraordinary people to my left. But first of all, I want to know about the young people who are in this audience. I see a number of potential future scientists for us. So tell me, raise your hand if your dad or mom are sitting up there. Yes? Okay. There are a lot of you. How many of you are interested in science? Cool. All right. Well, so this is that successor generation that we need. Go to our website, since I know people like you are most interested in learning digitally. Go to our website, look at energy.gov, kids. There are fantastic things on our website that will get those hooks into you early. So I am stalling a bit because I have word that our Secretary of Energy has returned from Capitol Hill, where he has been grilled all morning on the Iran nuclear deal that he recently negotiated in Vienna, and he really wants to be here to do this. So I'm going to say a few words, and then I believe he's going to seize the podium from me. These awards are, as you heard, a tradition that predates the formal establishment of our department, and they're among the most prestigious awards that are given by the United States government. This is our opportunity to give thanks to the outstanding mid-career scientists who make this department what Secretary Moniz calls the S&T powerhouse of the nation. He says that very proudly to many audiences. I've heard him say it to the President of the United States. Everyone in this department contributes to our leadership, and there are hundreds of teams whose work leads to the advances that have transformed life in America and around the world, and there's much more to come. These awardees have earned this special recognition because of their leadership, their creativity, their resourcefulness, and their sheer scientific skill. This ceremony is also an important way to remember Ernest Lawrence and his legacy of big science in America. His development of the cyclotron was to nuclear science what Galileo's invention of the telescope was to astronomy. And his significance was much more. His pioneering use of multidisciplinary teams of scientists and engineers helped to establish today's network of DOE's national laboratories, especially, of course, Lawrence Berkeley and Lawrence Livermore. And we stand on his shoulders today in so many ways. We want to honor the 9 of you, and I'm hopeful that Ernie might walk in the door just now because he really wanted to do this himself. I could provide a little more on each individual. Shall I do that, Lynn, while we await his arrival? We heard some from Pat and others. I'm going to summarize a bit more about each of your achievements. May Bai of Brookhaven is being honored for her contributions to fundamental nuclear physics, enabling better understanding of the proton, as you heard from Pat. Carolyn Bertozzi of Stanford, we honor for transformative discoveries in complex carbohydrates and for innovative nanotechnologies to probe biological systems. And I have a young son who's going off to Stanford in the fall. I'm going to send him to your course. Pavel Bochev of Sandia National Lab. His pioneering theoretical and practical advances in numerical methods are helping to solve a wide array of problems relevant to DOE's missions. Eric Dors of Los Alamos is being honored for his leadership in developing next-generation nuclear explosion sensing and detection systems, advancing our nonproliferation mission, one that's been so much, of course, in the news in the last weeks. Christopher Fryer, also of Los Alamos, is being honored for major advances to answer fundamental questions in astrophysics, computation, multiphysics, and high-energy density science. David Schlegel of the Lawrence Berkeley Lab has demonstrated leadership of major projects that have expanded our understanding of matter and energy in the universe and made precision cosmology one of the most important new tools of high-energy physics. Brian Wirth from the University of Tennessee is being honored for transformational advances in modeling of radiation effects in materials and for their contribution to improved fission and fusion energy technologies. Peidong Yang of UC Berkeley. His discoveries advancing synthesis and understanding of nanoscale materials have helped improve numerous important applications and devices. And last but not least, Joe Zhao of the University of Oklahoma is being honored for advancing our understanding of environmental, functional genomics, and microbial ecology systems. What a remarkable group of scientists. Let's give you all a hand. I've often said as I've made my way around the labs in our extraordinary national treasure of these 17 labs, really a jewel in the crown for this country, that our greatest strength as a department is not our equipment, not all those extraordinary things at these laboratories that we go to visit, but it's our people. Our people is what makes us great. And your curiosity and your ingenuity and your persistence are the essential ingredients. Yes, it's true that we build unique capabilities for the world, not just for the nation. We know how many users come to take advantage of the facilities at our labs, but it's these individuals with their brain power that make us who we are and keep us on the cutting edge of science and technology innovation. So thank you for the groundbreaking research that you are doing. Thank you for the inspiration that you provide to those who will follow in your footsteps, we hope. We want to celebrate this both for your achievements and also to inspire a next generation to continue in this important work. With that, I thank you, and I think we probably should proceed, although I want to check. We have some people out there watching for our secretary, and I know he really wanted to be the one to put the medals on people's necks. So just let's pause for a moment and see if we've actually got him marching in our direction. A sighting. We had a sighting. I don't know how many of you were watching CNN today. He was sitting with Secretary Kerry, Secretary Liu of the Treasury Department, and the Secretary of Energy, testifying for many hours before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the Iran agreement. And this is part of a full court press to ensure that we can advance our national security interests and the interests of our allies and partners all around the world in stopping Iran's nuclear program. So, would you like to say a few more words?
Sure.
All right.
This is the part where we hand out the straw hats and canes and entertain for a while. So I'm pleased to report that the deputy secretary is now explaining to the secretary what he's going to do next. Go for it.
Thanks, Lynn, and thanks, Liz. I really do apologize for this disruption because this is one of my favorite days of the year. So I just really wanted to be here, but as many of you know, we last week actually announced this Iran agreement. We have a very intense 2 months now in the Congress, so it's been 5 hours yesterday, 6 hours today up on the Hill working on this, but I really didn't want to take part in this, and I'm sure their jokes were excellent to keep things going. But I'll just say a few words. First of all, pivoting off of this Iran negotiation issue, and obviously here we have a number of our awardees from national labs, others, of course, universities, often, I think, working with our with our programs, of course, closely. And I just wanted to say that the Iran negotiation actually shows the importance of continued investment in our science infrastructure, It was unknown until I was parachuted into the negotiation at the end of February that DOE, our laboratories, our scientists, our engineers were involved all the time. They were there providing the technical analysis that underpinned everything. And the only point I want to make with that here really is that you don't get this turned on when you want it. Right? It's not like you suddenly come to this and, whoa, we got a big 7-country negotiation, highly technical in its foundations, and why don't we just start a national lab so that we can respond to the needs? This comes from investing, year in and year out, decade in and decade out, in terms of having a very, very strong science establishment. Our DOE laboratories are part of that. The whole science community that we serve is part of that. And ultimately, of course, it is about the outstanding young and mid-career scientists, some older ones too, but the young and mid-career people who are the ones who we are going to rely on for the science breakthroughs, for the technology breakthroughs, but also whenever it's called upon, really to serve the country in the way that our people have. Excuse me, in the last month. So I just wanted to connect that to where I've been for the last 6 hours. Excuse me. I'll bet Liz has already taken my line of a science and technology powerhouse, but how did I guess? Right. But it really is true, and that's something that this department takes really seriously, and we're going to keep doing that. And again, these kinds of awardees are the people that we're going to be counting on. So that's really all I wanted to say, Lynn. And now tell me what to do.
Well, this is going to be a tag team arrangement. So the secretary will put the medal onto the recipient, and I'll ask each of the representatives of the offices to come hand over the certificate, and that's how we'll do it. So let me start by asking Madeline Creedon to join us. She represents the National Nuclear Security Administration. And this is to confer one of you will have to actually read you'll have to read the certificate to get the right one. This is a test. So, but we have two very well qualified people here, so I'm pretty sure they can pull this off. So the first one is the Lawrence Award in Computer Information and Knowledge Sciences to Pavel Bochev from Sandia National Laboratory. So this award is for pioneering advances. This is for pioneering advances in numerical methods for partial differential equations and the formulation of new classes of solutions, and for fostering their adoption into mission-relevant applications and codes. Congratulations. I have to say that having spent a good portion of my career solving partial differential equations numerically, I appreciate how hard it is and that's why I'm here in an administrative job, right? So we now recognize Eric Dors from Los Alamos National Laboratory, who's the recipient of the Lawrence Award in National Security and Nonproliferation. And this is for technical leadership and systems engineering integration of next-generation satellite-based nuclear explosion sensing and detection systems, and for its impact to the nonproliferation mission. We now recognize Christopher Fryer, Los Alamos National Laboratory, who's the recipient of the Lawrence Award in Fusion and Plasma Science. This is for seminal advances in theory and modeling, answering fundamental questions in astrophysics, for achievement in computational multiphysics, and for contributions impacting high energy density science. So that concludes the laureates for the National Nuclear Security Administration. Thank you, Madeline. Next, I ask Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy, John Kotek, to join us. And our first award in energy science and innovation is to Brian Wirth, University of Tennessee. And this is for transformational advances in computational multi-scale modeling of radiation effects in materials and for their impact to fission and fusion energy technologies. So next, we move to the Office of Science. Pat Damer, the director of the office, will join the secretary. And the first award in this sequence is the Lawrence Award in Nuclear Physics to May Bai for Brookhaven National Laboratory. This is for innovation and leadership to achieve the successful acceleration and storage of polarized proton beams up to 255 GeV at the relativistic heavy ion collider, and for its related impact to advancing fundamental nuclear physics. We now recognize Carolyn Bertozzi, Stanford University, who recently transitioned from that other university across the bay, University of California, Berkeley. She's the recipient of the Lawrence Award in Atomic, Molecular, and Chemical Sciences for transformative discoveries in the chemistry and biology of complex carbohydrates and for innovating nanotechnologies to probe biological systems, optimize bioreactors, and develop tailored devices and materials. All right, here comes, I know what's coming.
Her father was my colleague since
1973. She must have been one of those high potential kids. Huh? We now recognize David Schlegel, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, the recipient of the Lawrence Award in High Energy Physics, for exceptional leadership and innovation to transform cosmology into a precision science, and for its impact to map the expansion rate of the universe, ascertain the nature of dark energy, and test general relativity. So we now recognize Peidong Yang, University of California, Berkeley, the recipient of the 2014 Lawrence Award in Condensed Matter and Material Sciences. This is for discoveries advancing synthesis and understanding of nanoscale materials, and for developing novel semiconductor nanowires and metal nanocrystals, impacting applications and devices. And finally, we recognize Jizhong Zhao of the University of Oklahoma, recipient of the Lawrence Award in Biological and Environmental Sciences, for seminal discoveries advancing understanding in environmental functional genomics and microbial ecology systems, and for innovative development of metagenomics technologies. All right, please join me in congratulating all 2014 of the Ernest Orlando Lawrence Award winners. So now we get to hear from the award winners themselves. They've all been told that they have 3 minutes, and we have this electroshock device down here if you go over, so do be careful. But we'll start with Dr. Bochev.
I wasn't actually told about the shock.
It was classified until now.
Okay. Well, 25 years ago, I landed not far from here in Dallas Airport with just a backpack, a duffel bag stuffed with books, and I guess equal share of apprehension and excitement about my new country. And it has been an incredible journey ever since. It started at Virginia Tech. I was fortunate enough to work with Max Gansberger, who is a world-class scientist, but also an amazing advisor who treated us as a family. Max taught me the tool of the trade. He took me to my first football game, and he also introduced me to sushi and buffalo wings, a new thing, a new experience for me. And after all these years, Max and I remain colleagues and above all friends. Now, in the summers of '93 and '94, I crossed paths with Clint Scoville, who mentored me at the Los Alamos National Lab. So Clint opened up 2 new worlds for me, a mathematical and a natural. We worked on symplectic integrators, watched the Perseids, cruised New Mexico in his '63 Chevy, and ate pozole in the Pueblo where he lived. So those summers kind of mark a watershed in my journey. I was captivated by the beauty of New Mexico and thrilled by the research opportunities in the labs. And so in my heart, I knew that this is where I belong. And so 15 years ago, I became a Sandian. So my new colleagues were exceptional scientists and engineers. They were passionate about our mission, and they were eager to share its challenges with me. So their work and Sandia's mission became a source and inspiration for many of the problems I took on. And the labs really helped me shape, grow, and mature my research in a way that would not have been otherwise possible, and that ultimately led to this recognition. So I'm proud to be a part of the DOE complex with its rich history of cutting-edge scientific discovery, research, innovation, and unique role in our nation's security. And so it's a great privilege and honor for me to be a recipient of an award that bears the name of Dr. Lawrence, who played a crucial role in establishing the U.S. system of national labs. Now, on a more personal note, this award exemplifies for me the promise of the American dream as put succinctly by James Adams. A dream of social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of which they are innately capable, and to be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of circumstances of birth or position. So I want to close by saying thank you to all people who taught, mentored, and supported me throughout my career, my parents, my wife Biljana, my family. For their patience and understanding, you all share this honor equally. And this award would not have been possible without the support and the commitment of the ASC program and the Office of Science. I thank you, Mr. Secretary, Dr. Orr, and the leadership of DOE for your vision and work on our behalf to preserve and grow the research opportunities that are essential to ensure the technological and scientific edge of our nation and its security. I didn't get shocked.
It's coming.
It's coming. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Dors, you're next.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here today. And when I reflect on this, I arrived in Los Alamos about 17 years ago with my wife and what our representative Heather Wilson called the National Laboratory at the end of the dead-end dirt road, and for hoping to participate in some great science. And actually, I went there to work on some wonderful collaborative programs we have with the NASA. And I hadn't really no idea what national security science was. But through those programs and through a great many mentors I had, I learned that we can apply science, basic science, to provide high-risk, high-payoff playground to develop all the tools we need for a science-based national security system, and something we have come to call scientific deterrence. And really, if we can do all these open things to show our prowess and our capabilities, and when we're doing nonproliferation, it really provides us an unclassified messaging to tell our adversaries where our capabilities are. So through all my career, that it really I went from having no idea about national security to really having it be the core of my daily life, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to work for the Department of Energy. Along the way, there have been many sacrifices by a great many people that I represent here on the stage. First and foremost, my wife Kristen and my family. They're excuse me. As Deputy Secretary pointed out, there have been many missed dinners and missed anniversaries and things. So thank you for your support. I've also had a wonderfully supportive upper management at Los Alamos, and I wish to thank them for their continued support. I have 100 people that were on my team developing this instrument that we launched into space, and they're all working very hard and have a very strong passion for national security. The Office of Nonproliferation Research and Development has been there, and from the day I took over for that project, was always there to help me and support me with the budget we needed to be able to make the achievements that we did on a very short time scale. And I can't go into details, but there's a number of other agencies across the government that were half dozen agencies that were critically important, and a wonderful partnership was developed with the Department of State and the Department of Defense and others to make this delivery possible. So I accept this award humbly with the note that I really am representing that large team here today. So thank you very much.
Dr. Fryer.
So first and foremost, I'd like to thank my many collaborators and my family, and especially my kids, because they've had to endure many, sometimes heated discussions with my longest term collaborator, scientific collaborator, my wife and their mother. In fact, I remember one of the discussions we've had where it got maybe a little bit more heated than otherwise, and we looked over at our shell-shocked daughter. She's thinking, "Oh my goodness, what's happening?" And we had to disclaim, "No, this is a science discussion. We're good." So that's worked out very well. They've been very patient with us. I also want to highlight one thing that you mentioned earlier about the multidisciplinary features of the national labs. So I'm a computational astrophysics. It's applied physics. It puts in a lot of physics together. And one of the things that's been the greatest strength for me at the national labs has been this, not just ability, but the encouragement to work with a lot of different disciplines. And in the course of my time at Los Alamos, I had to write this list down because it was so big. I've worked with a number of physicists across a large number of fields, from nuclear and particle physics, atomic physics, material scientists and equation of state experts, nuclear engineers, computational fluid dynamicists, plasma physicists, high energy density physicists, computational physicists, and as long as my division leader never hears this, even I've had the pleasure to work with computer scientists. My work itself has benefited immensely from these kind of multidisciplinary projects, and I would like to thank both the nature of the Los Alamos National Lab and the nature of the Department of Energy for allowing me to do these broad collaborations. Thank you.
Dr. Wirth.
Thank you. I'm very honored and humbled to receive the E.O. Lawrence Award for Energy Science and Innovation, and I appreciate the opportunity to personally thank Secretary Moniz, Undersecretary Orr, and Assistant Secretary Kotek. I have, as John mentioned, had the good fortune of having sustained funding from DOE from the time I graduated as an undergraduate and went to the University of California, Santa Barbara. And I also have had funding from all of the offices represented here today, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the Office of Nuclear Energy, and both the Office of Fusion Energy Sciences and the Office of Advanced Scientific Computing Research within the Office of Science. There's a great number of representatives here today from both the Office of Fusion Energy, thank you Ed and Jim and Jean, and the Office of Nuclear Energy, thank you Dan and others, and I appreciate you being here. I am also indebted to my PhD advisors at UC Santa Barbara, Bob Odette, Jean Lucas, and Dimitri Maroutas, for the rigorous guidance, training, and friendship during my PhD as we developed a framework for computational multi-scale modeling that's experimentally validated. And I, as others have noted, am very fortunate to call my advisors colleagues and friends today. During my PhD, I was inspired by the research and career of Ernest Lawrence as I learned of the amazing history of the Manhattan Project and the beginning of nuclear science and engineering. Following my PhD, I moved to one of the laboratories named for him, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, before joining the faculty at UC Berkeley, where I also held a faculty scientist appointment at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So very clearly, the early part of my career was chasing Lawrence's legacy. And that, to me, makes this award very, very special. I moved to the University of Tennessee in Oak Ridge National Laboratory 5 years ago, and I am very grateful to the administration of the university, UT Battelle Alliance and Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and I greatly appreciate the folks from there that are here today. Wes Hines, Dean Wayne Davis, and my good friend and colleague Steve Zinkel, who spearheaded the efforts to prepare the nomination package that has me standing here today. During the past 5 years, I've also had the privilege of working for CASTLE, the Department of Energy's Energy and Innovation Hub for Nuclear Energy. And with Chris Stanek, we have worked very hard to employ a multi-scale materials modeling methodology from a top-down engineering perspective. And I am greatly appreciative to Chris for the many long hours of collaboration and sometimes pulling our hair out. I would also like to acknowledge the program for the scientific discovery of advanced, through advanced computing, the SIDAC program, and they have been supporting our efforts for multi-scale materials modeling and plasma surface interactions for the past few years. And I must admit, feeling a little guilty that not only myself, but some of our colleagues are skipping this afternoon's version of the SIDAC PI meeting to be here. This award is also a very fantastic recognition of the enormous number of student and postdoctoral researchers that I've had the pleasure of working with when I was at UC Berkeley and the University of Tennessee, along with a very wide network of multidisciplinary collaborators at institutions across the entire National Laboratory Complex, as well as many universities. I cannot personally acknowledge them all here. In fact, I'm worried that the buzzer is going to go off, but I'm very thankful nonetheless to work with such an outstanding group. Finally, and most importantly, I need to thank my family for, as the Deputy Secretary noted, all their love, support, and in particular, their patience and understanding for the many times I was on the road to develop and perform the research activities for which I'm being recognized. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bai.
Very nervous. First of all, I'd like to thank Secretary Moniz and Professor Orr, Deputy Secretary and Office of Science, and for giving me, the award committee, giving me such a prestigious award. And I'm very lucky and fortunate to have a chance to go to Brookhaven Lab as a graduate student, and actually have worked at the relativistic heavy ion collider for so many years, and very humble that such a small part of my contribution that I might have contributed to the RIC program being recognized in such an honorable way today. So to me, most importantly, this award is the recognition of the significant contribution of the RIC program, especially the 500 GeV polarized proton program, to our fundamental understanding of the matter in the universe, the nuclear physics, and also the recognition of the entire RIC team, hundreds of colleagues across the world, the physicists, engineers, technical and administrative staffs that I have the fortune to work with. And it is really the whole team who actually brought the whole polarized protons to the current world record energy. And I hope we will create a new record in the future. And I'm extremely honored to be part of them. RHIC is the only high-energy collider in the States at the moment. Hopefully have one more. Offers many competitive physics programs in the comparison to its big but still young brother, the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. Because of its uniqueness, this unique capability of accelerating polarized protons to high energy. And such a capability really owes to itself the result of a group of physicists, in particular Thomas Roser, Jerry Bounce, Mike Tannenbaum, and others, who actually at the design phase of RHIC had the vision and the courage to convince the community to extend RHIC physics program to study the proton spin structure. So at the end, I don't want to be shocked as I come. I really have a lot of people, a very long list for me to thank, really friends and colleagues for their continuous support and help all these years. But I want to take this opportunity to especially thank my mentors, without whom I never make it. And they are Thomas Roser, S.Y. Lee, and Mike Cyphers. And they have been all these years my source of inspiration, and also they really influenced me deeply, holistically. At the end, I'm very, very lucky to have my lab director, Don Gibbs, and also my partner, Mickey, with me today. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bertozzi.
Thank you very much. I thought maybe what I would do is start by thinking about all the big breaks that I had in my career, which, you know, a lot of them were obviously big at the time, and some of them seemed small at the time, but in retrospect they were bigger than I thought. That lead one to be able to achieve things that people recognize with things like this. And for me, it started, as Secretary Moniz introduced, with having a really lucky break, being born into a family that was very supportive of girls in science. And so for that, I thank my father and my mother. My father, William Bertozzi, who's a friend of the DOE and has been for many decades. He's in his 80s now, but after he resigned, I shouldn't say resigned, he retired from MIT. He then started a company, so he's kind of in his second career now. And then, yeah, doing very well up in Massachusetts. So then my second big break, I think probably would have been my college research experience. I became interested in chemistry and I wanted to do research and had a hard time kind of talking my way into a laboratory, but when I finally did, it was with a young professor named Joe Grabowski, who was a physical chemist. And that was a big break because he gave me a chance to play around in a laboratory, which of course informed my choices after college. And I was bit by the research bug, and he also helped me line up an internship at Bell Labs. And you know, all of us, a smile I see crosses the face of everyone in the audience when you mention the good old days of Bell Labs. And that's where I met Paul Alivisatos, who's one of my real scientific heroes and personal heroes. And so, you know, when you go to Bell Labs, even for 3 months, everyone there tells you to go to UC Berkeley to do your PhD. So that's what I did. And then I had another big break. I joined the brand new lab of a young professor who gave me all kinds of independence and freedom, and unfortunately became ill 3 years into my graduate experience. His name was Mark Bednarski, and then he passed away several years later. But it was through Mark Bednarski that I became introduced to the Lawrence Berkeley lab and to the science that was going on up there in the material sciences division. Got to know Paul better, and also, you know, made enough friends so that when I came back to Berkeley and joined the faculty a few years later, they welcomed me with open arms and said, why don't you see if you have an interest in what's going on up here at LBL? And maybe, you know, if you have an idea that synergizes with the needs of the DOE, maybe we can sponsor a program in your lab. And when you're a young assistant professor and someone says, maybe we'll fund you, you run home and get to work. And so that's where it all began for me, and with my relationship with the DOE. And it grew and grew, and many years later, after getting to know the people at BES, like Dr. Damer, who were so supportive of interdisciplinary science, I had the great opportunity to direct the Molecular Foundry, which was one of the nanoscience user facilities. And I learned so much from that 5-year experience, including what it means to really think big. And this is where I think DOE is like no other organization on the planet Earth. DOE is a big thinker. It's a go big or go home. And so, you know, the folks that were in the national labs had the vision for these user facilities that would democratize research in nanoscience. And that got written into the National Nanoscience Initiative. And then we started building buildings and hiring really amazing people. And it's a facility that now you can see it from the freeway. If you're driving through the East Bay out by Berkeley, you can see it up in the hills. It's majestic. And the people are phenomenal. And I'm extremely proud of everything that they've accomplished. And even if I know I was a tiny little part of it, just to be any part at all was a great privilege for me. So now, as it was mentioned, I've been at Berkeley for 25, 26 years, if you add it all up, but I'm about to start a new position at Stanford, and next week I'm meeting with the folks at SLAC, and hopefully, if I'm lucky, I'll get a chance to kind of start all over again, meet some new colleagues, and get involved in different areas of research with the patriots that work in the Department of Energy. Finally, my family. I'll echo the sentiments that the other award recipients have mentioned about the sacrifices that our families make. I see these young kids in the audience, and I'm regretful now that I didn't have the courage to bring my 6, 4, and 2-year-old boys. They're 3 little guys, and if they were here, they'd be running around up and down and so on. And maybe that would have spared you that having to stall so long. For Secretary Moniz, that would have been the entertainment of the afternoon. But anyways, they're at home, and I'm going to take a lot of selfies and send them the photos tonight. So thank you very much. It's a tremendous honor. Thank you.
Dr. Schlegel.
Thank you. Far too many people to thank than I possibly could, but let me try. So I'm going to start with my parents who couldn't be here today, but I'm going to cover the ears of our kids. I just want to thank them for when I was 6 years old, putting up with their kid getting up in the middle of the night and feeding him pens and papers and everything he could want to work on his big ideas as a 6-year-old. I wish I could remember them because they seemed so important at the time. Jumping forward, I'd like to thank a very good friend of mine, Scott Sarland, who did make it here today. We're in college. I didn't really know any physics, actually. Maybe this is the only country where you could go from there to here today. But he dragged me along to, like, Dave, why don't you come to this physics class, this astronomy class, all these interesting courses that I didn't know anything about. And then a few years into college, like, well, I didn't take any of those pre-mid classes I was supposed to take. I guess I'm going into physics. Then I'd like to thank Jennifer for putting up with someone getting up in the middle of the night, writing down all sorts of crazy thoughts on, there's a theme here. Putting up with that for many, many years now. And I especially appreciate this award because at least it's a vindication that some of that might have been important and interesting things to do. And then finally, I would like to thank the National Labs, where I'm just so incredibly grateful to have found an intellectual home here, where I think it is unlike any place else in the country or in the world. And in order to do the big science that I'm working on today, it's not enough to just have a good idea. That's actually the easy part right now. The good ideas are, let's figure out what's going on. If you only had that and you want to answer these big questions, well, that's in the phase space of being able to accomplish this, that would be the zero dimensionality of what you need to actually accomplish it. You need the rest of the structure set up, and somehow the other people in this room here are able to accommodate all of this, and then on the other end, somehow this shows up in the congressional budget as just along with roads and bridges and whatever else, but then somehow that supports all of the great and crazy science that we're doing. So thank you for doing that.
Dr. Yang.
Thank you. This is a tremendous honor for me. So I want to start off by thanking DOE BS for the continuous support in the last 15 years. I started my career now about 15 years ago at UC Berkeley. I remember back then almost, I would say, 99% of materials and nanoscientists are working on either quantum dots and carbon nanotube. At that moment, I think Dr. Ramvik Cotton actually decided to fund my semiconductor nanowire research as a young assistant professor. So during the, if now we look back, the semiconductor nanowire research is growing so big, and lots of science technology is coming out of it, and much of it also is being applied to this energy technology. So I'm really grateful for the DOE support to make this happen. And I also want to thank my colleagues at Berkeley. Berkeley actually provided a very supportive and collaborative environment for, and also intellectually stimulating environment for us to grow as a scientist. I remember it's about more than 10 years ago. We have many days and nights, informal meetings, formal meetings, brainstormings about this Helios program. Basically, we're trying to come up with material system to convert CO2 using solar energy to value-added chemicals and fuels. And then nowadays, we know that there is this big energy hub, JCAP. So lots of scientists are devoted to this area, and now the artificial photosynthesis is also one of big part of my current research nowadays. And I want to certainly thank my student in the past 15 years. In the past, I had a pleasure to work with about 100 graduate student postdoc in the past 15 years. As you know, officially nowadays we are middle career scientists. So very often we are just having ideas. So the students and postdocs are the real hero to make these ideas work. So I'm really grateful for their hard work and also their input to these exciting research efforts. And finally, I want to thank my family. My wife and a daughter is here, and I want to thank them for their patience and support again in the past many years. Again, thank you. Okay.
Dr. Zhao.
So it's good to be last, because I can speak as long as I want, right? Okay, so dear Secretary Moniz, so Secretary O, so Director Dema, DOE program managers, staff, colleagues, friends, and family. So it's a great honor for me to be receive the Lawrence Award for Biological and Environment Science 2014. So I would like to take the majority of time to express my gratitude to different people. So first, I would like to appreciate DOE support over many years. So within OBR, so I would like thank the DOE program managers and directors such as Shani Razulex, Todd Anderson, Jill Graber, Dan Juel, many others, as well as the former OBR director, Polly Masana. Also, I would like to give my deep thanks to my mentors, such as Jim Tiji, Andy Kanahoff, and Tony Polambo, as well as like some my mentors in China, so like Ma Sujima and Chang Minzhen. Over the years, it's fortunate you see I have many collaborators, such as Taylor Hazen, Adam Arkin, David Storr, Paul Adam, Mary Firestones, Lisa Oliver Rice Cohen, so Craig Corridor, and Gary Anderson. So they gave me a lot of support. So without their support, it will be not impossible for me to receive this award. Also, you see, over the many years, I have very nice, very supportive bosses. When I was at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory for 10 years, now I'm at the University of Oklahoma. So I get a lot of support from the university administrations. So also, you see, over the years, so I have had about more than 200 research staff, postdoc, student, and visiting scientists. So this work will be not possible without their hard working and the contributions. So finally, so I would like to thank my family. So my daughter and my son is here actually. So my parents and the parents-in-law. Especially I would like to thank my wife, Cindy Shi, so for her love, support, encouragement. Actually, say over the years, she has taken off essentially all their family issues. So I did not spend much time on this. That's why I can focus on the research. So really, this award is also for you, Cindy. So in close with science, with rapid advance in genomics and technologies. So we are really in the golden time to study microbiology. So we are facing a lot of problems in energy and the environment. So many of the problems are related to microbiology. So many of you maybe you know Samuel Ting at MIT. So several years ago, so both of us were invited to a special event. So then he gave a speech. I think it's very interesting. He said, science only has a number one, no number two. So I know that I'm not as good as him, but you say I would do, if I would devote my next 20 years for microbiology, so to study microbiology, to explore new areas. So try to do my best, try to number one, not number two. So with that, I will close. Thank you.
So thanks to all of you for being here. It wouldn't be the right kind of celebration without all of you here. Congratulations again to the 2014 Ernest Orlando Lawrence Award laureates. Those of you in the audience, we have a reception upstairs in the cafeteria, and when you go out, we'll direct you to the escalators. Those of you in the U-types and these folks need to stay here for pictures, and then we'll be upstairs shortly. So thank you all for coming.